If you feel like every day is a battle, your child refuses to listen, argues about everything, explodes over nothing, and can't sit still for more than 2 seconds, well, you're probably dealing with more than just ADHD. Oppositional Defiant Disorder, or ODD, and ADHD can go hand in hand. And unless you address both, nothing is going to change, right? No amount of discipline or wishing it away or prayer is going to make it change. Okay. So let's break down what the overlap actually looks like and how to help your child regulate before blow up start. And that means we have to understand the ODD ADHD overlap. And so about 40 to 60% of kids also have oppositional behaviors. Doesn't mean they have oppositional defiant disorder, but they have behaviors. When we think about ADHD, remember it's impulsivity, distractibility, poor emotional control. And ODD is about defiance, anger, refusal, power struggles, especially with authority figures. That is a real distinguishing factor. And know that there are times when kids have oppositional behaviors, but with ODD, it's a constant. It's there, and it's very much part of who they are and part of their struggle. The same executive functioning challenges fuel attention issues and oppositional behaviors because it fuels emotional dysregulation, which stems from nervous system dysregulation, and that can lead to oppositional behaviors and can lead to, which is an overstimulated behavior, as well as those understimulated behaviors. There is definitely an overlap. So what does it look like in real life, right? ODD. So quick to say no before you even hear a request. And there's some overlap with ODD and rejection sensitive dysphoria. Go back and listen to that episode because I love talking about rejection sensitive dysphoria because so much angst, emotional reactivity for kids with ADHD can come from perceived criticism or rejection, whether it's real or not, or perceived. And so much of their struggles can come from that. So with ODD, you have explosive meltdowns, right? Over the top, especially during transitions or task demands. Can you start your homework? Can you help this? And then just be over the top reactions that are consistent, right? So they happen a lot, they occur for a long time, and they recover poorly from them. People with ODD and even ADD often blame others for their mistakes because they lack insight into their own behavior in order to be able to say, well, I did that. When things are good, they'll recognize it after, and then our job is to help them. With ODDs, a refusal to follow directions, especially when they feel overwhelmed. You have a lot of push and pull dynamic. You can't make me kind of energy. Kids with ODD struggle with authority figures. That's a hallmark of ODD. Rigid routines. They don't often care if it's private or public. I think that's one of the biggest distinguishers. Here's the deal. You can't discipline your way out of dysregulation. And if your kid's nervous system is overwhelmed, no amount of rewards, consequence, punishment is going to change things because their brain can't access logic, right? That's what that executive dysfunction, you have to calm that brain first in order to help your child learn. And remember, I believe every kid can learn to regulate. And regardless of neurodivergent or a mental health issue or behavioral issue, why wouldn't we want to support kids in being more regulated? Everybody deserves that. Oh, we only should medicate. That's just baloney and cheese. We need to regulate and teach skills. That is how we create lifelong emotional wellness. And the research is really clear on that. Kids that are regulated are happier, and every kid can learn this. We are not born this way. Some kids just need a longer ramp. They need more reinforcement. And when you're regulated, you can do that. So, what's going on in the brain of somebody with ADHD, with somebody with ODD? So with ADHD, right now, both struggle with prefrontal cortex because their executive functioning is not appropriate. They don't know how to put the brakes on, and ADD can look is more than that. You don't always have to be impulsive. You can be unfocused. But in ADHD, we have an underactive prefrontal cortex. They just, when I do my beautiful brain maps, they literally don't have enough gas in their frontal lobes. You can see that. With ODD, what you're seeing is a very activated nervous system. In the brain maps that I see, I can see hypercommunication, and they have a lot of fight responses to perceived threat or overwhelm. And then again, kids that are being oppositional are not choosing this. Their nervous system is reacting, and they've developed a behavioral habit to respond this way. Don't get me wrong, kids with ODD are very activating. So unless you are like really bringing your A game, you're probably stuck in a reactivity cycle that is actually feeding it. And I don't mean to make you feel bad. It's just part of the process, right? We know better, we can do better. So emotional dysregulation is absolutely part of the root cause of this issue. And that nervous system activation, whether under or overstimulated, is a driver. Okay. And there's lots of ways to address this. So, how do you help a kid with oppositional behaviors? Number one, you got to regulate first. So, nothing you're going to do, there's no behavioral change that's going to happen if we are not getting that brain out of survival mode, out of activation, out of fight, flight, or freeze. Number two, you're going to co regulate because you are that anchor. If you go in hot, they're going to meet you there. If you go in calm, they probably can't meet you there at first, but the more you do it, the more you will give a nonverbal cue to their nervous system to calm the heck down. The better you're going to feel about yourself. You're going to be like, I can do this, Dr. Bro. Kids who dysregulate, they need the psychological safety of structure. We need some flexibility, right? But we really need structure and routine. You want to give room for autonomy. So we don't want to rescue our kids all the time. We don't want to bubble wrap them. We really want to provide the bumpers so that they can experience failure and learn how to regulate, right? And just because your kid is distressed, you heard me talk about in the previous episode that you want to give a space for a pause. A pause is super, super helpful. I was telling a story in my book that's coming out, and how I had a mom that was just always rescuing her kid because she felt bad for him. I mean, who wants to see their kid distressed? But what she didn't know was that by constantly rescuing him, it was actually feeding his behavior. She didn't even give him a chance to have a different response. And so when I was working with her, she let him dysregulate. And it wasn't pretty at first. He had spent, he was a little guy. He was still like 9. Over time, they both were like, "Oh, I could do this. I can learn coping skills." And that's super, super helpful. When kids are dysregulated, we don't want to overtalk. We want to be short in as neutral and positive a tone as possible. If we can use visuals, whether it's your hands, hey, do you want 1, 2, or 3? Whether it's some type of visual schedule, we want to be as short and clear as possible. This is not the time for a lecture when your kid is dysregulating. We've all been there, but let's not go there too much. And we want to avoid power struggles, right? So give your kid choices. Power struggles are about, I need control. Don't go, well, I'm not going to give them control. No, you give them safe control. When you give them safe control, they feel more enabled to, or they are more enabled to make better choices for themselves instead of you constantly having to be involved, right? Autonomous parenting supportive parenting is using positive parenting, but also allowing our kids to make mistakes. And I know it's hard when a kid is overstimulated and they're oppositional, but again, those are just behaviors, right? We can't personalize behavior. It's not about disrespect, it's about dysregulation. And so, how can we figure that out, right? We have to regulate and provide these strategies for them, right? So, when your kid has both ADD and ODD, traditional parenting isn't going to work. So, don't ask your mom about it unless she's like rock star teacher, psychologist, or taken upon herself to take, one of my courses. It's because it's not a behavioral problem, it's a brain regulation problem. Their nervous system is so overstimulated and they're reacting to things. When we support the nervous system and come in with co-regulation and these strategies, that's when the magic happens. And, for people that, do my brain behavior reset program, whether they're unsure if this is a mood disorder or oppositional defiant or ADD or autism or PANS pandas, those that tends to be that. We use a QEEG brain map and we really just get to the bottom of it and we figure it out and we see what areas are over and underactivated. In the case of the kid who came to me all those years ago, we did a brain map and mom really thought he had a mood disorder and he didn't. He just had gotten into a pattern of dysregulation and they were stuck. We did a lot more parenting work than regulating his nervous system, but of course we regulated his nervous system too and hers. And it was pretty magical. And actually the shift happened much quicker than I think anybody anticipated because the mom really was just empowered. But for people that are really stuck, our brain behavior reset program is a concierge level program that gives you wraparound support, at home neurofeedback, PEMF if you choose. We support you on the behavior, on how to regulate the brain, and all the ways that you can do it. And parents get real time support so that you're not, struggling out there on your own because it's not pretty and it's not easy to find a practitioner that isn't going to try to shove meds down your throat. And medication isn't the answer here. You must regulate and teach. When we support the nervous system, that's when the real change happens. And you can just get so much further, so much faster with a lot less friction. And, it's when you have a oppositional child, I think the saddest part is the friction that occurs between you two. And, you wonder how you can repair that. And so the earlier you start, the better. So your next step is to take our solution matcher and we'll guide you to the right path. drroseann.com/help. And you know what? You got this.